Morning Joe speaks truth to power.
He is destroying the Republican Party for years to come.
With access to the people who matter.
Step up. It's not about your dad. It's about the country.
From the halls of Congress to the Oval Office.
We will survive this.
Morning Joe, weekdays 6 to 9 on Msnbc.
The Trump administration has missed a court-ordered deadline to reunite 2,551 migrant children with their parents. In a high-stakes showdown with the ACLU in a San Diego courtroom today, the government argued that all eligible children have been reunified. In the hearing, the government revealed that 1,820 children have been reunited with their parents. So what are the next steps for these newly reunited families? According to the government, 1,000 families could face immediate deportation. 600 families have been released under supervision in their communities. 392 families are still being detained and being held in ICE custody. This still leaves 650 children the government deems ineligible for reunification because their parents have already been deported. We should never forget that these are not numbers. These are children. This isn't an accounting exercise. These children's lives have been forever changed by separation and detainment at the hands of the U.S. government. Here are some of those children in their own words. 9-year-old Diego told the Washington Post, "I felt like a prisoner. I felt like a dog." 8-year-old Sandy said they always kept the boys and the girls separate, and they punished us if we went near each other. They told us to behave, or we'd be there forever. A 10-year-old girl told the court, "I didn't cry the first day when I was at this facility, but I began crying all the time on the second and third day because I missed my mother." The majority of the other girls in my cell were also crying the whole time I was there. The lights were always on. There were no windows, and I didn't know whether it was day or not. I never got to see my mom until we left the facility. A phone call between a detained 7-year-old boy named Osman and his mother in Guatemala was captured by Vice News Tonight on HBO.
Cuando quieras hablar contigo, decides que hablar conmigo, papá. Sí, ya entonces no te dejas de hablar. Claro. Ah, mi amor, no, estate contento, ya vas a salir de ahí.
That boy is 7 years old. The ACLU has asked the court to block any deportations for 7 days upon notice of a family's reunification. Judge Dana Sabra will issue an order on this matter and next steps for the 650 children still waiting to be reunited with their families. But at today's hearing, the judge noted this problem cannot repeat. What was lost in the process was the family. There has to be a procedure or protocol in place. Joining us now from San Diego is MSNBC's Jacob Soboroff, who was at today's hearing, and Maria Teresa Kumar, the president and CEO of Voto Latino and an MSNBC contributor. Jacob, what is the latest?
Well, Katie, the name of the game was to reunite the 2,551 kids that the Trump administration systematically separated from their parents and put into the cages like the ones that I saw down in McAllen, Texas. And the reason I wanted to come down here today to the court in San Diego was to see if the Trump administration was going to reunite the children beyond those that they deemed, quote unquote, eligible for reunification, about 1,800 of them. And we've been asking them the last couple of days if they had any plans to do so, and they wouldn't say to us if they did. It turns out in that courtroom today, it became very clear that they had no plans to reunite what they called ineligible children, and only because the judge has said now that he will issue an order to reunite 651 ineligible children with their parents, including 431 what he called missing parents, parents that have already been deported outside of this country and can't actually get back in the country in order to be reunited with the kids. That may end up happening at all. And that's on top of the 1,000 reunited families that have orders for immediate deportation. And that's what that other order is about that we're waiting for from the judge. We didn't get it today, but we expect it over the weekend or Monday to either stay those deportations so the ACLU can get to them and help them not get deported if they actually have a valid asylum claim or not.
Jacob, hold on. When you talk about ineligible parents, I think that word can be a bit confusing. Right. The government is using it to make it a blanket statement. People will assume that that means all of those parents have committed crimes or there's something dangerous involved. Is that what that word actually means?
No, absolutely not. And actually, let me be really clear. The kids in that ineligible category were separated in the exact same way from the people that they came with that the kids in the eligible category were as well. There is a relatively small group in that category of around 650 at this point of children whose parents had committed some form of crime. We don't know the seriousness of that crime, and that came out today inside the courtroom. The largest portion of that group are the 431 parents that have already been kicked out of the country without the children. And the children now are sitting here in the United States with no way to actually get back to those parents. And the parents certainly, categorically, can't come back into this country to be reunited with the children. They're essentially stranded here in the United States at this point, and that's all that ineligible really means.
Maria, the ACLU is arguing that a lot of those parents that were deported didn't actually understand what they were doing when they signed the waiver for deportation, that they were told they were going to be reunified with their kids pretty quickly after they were deported, only to get deported and realize that there's no process in place to get them their kids back quickly.
That's exactly right. And many of these individuals that were coming, that were fleeing places such as Guatemala, were actually not even native Spanish speakers. Their native tongue is indigenous. And so even when people were trying to explain the paperwork, they didn't know what they were signing. We have heard cases where a father was promised that he was going to be reunited with his child on the airplane, only to find that his child was not there and he was already in flight. And what we're seeing now and what we're hearing is that a lot of non-governmental organizations, non-government NGOs, are going down to Guatemala, down to Honduras, trying to find needles in haystacks, trying to identify these parents so that they can basically do the government work to reunite these folks. And, Katie, what I tell you is that the government had no plan. They basically said that they were going to use this as a deterrent. This was something that they crafted to exact maximum pain on people already fleeing horrible, horrendous conditions. These folks were feeling violence. They were trying to protect their families. They were traversing 2 to 3 countries with basically just the clothes on their back to give their kids a better shot. And instead of following international asylum laws, this government exacted completely the opposite. The UN has basically said that what the government did was actually was violating the rights of the children, and we have to figure out how do we quickly reunify these parents. So hats off today to the judge that basically said that not on his watch, that you have to put a plan in place, and also that we have to create rules and regulations and oversight so that these separate departments, Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Human Services, actually make sure that this doesn't happen again.
We rely on the numbers to report this story because we can't get to a lot of these families. They've already been deported, and we can't locate them. And we certainly can't get to any of the kids. The government has been keeping cameras out, so you don't get to put a face adequately to these stories. And I don't think I think the problem with that is that you're not getting the full impact of what's going on and what it is like for these children to be inside these detention centers away from their parents, and how scary that must be.
And Katie, some of these children can barely speak, right? So some of them are 2, 3, 4 years old, and so you're finding stories where the parents saying that the child does not recognize them. Well, it's because they haven't seen them for 2, 3, 4, 5 months as well.
Maria and Jacob, thank you very much.